What is up? We are back. Tuesday edition recap show on Football Life presents the Audible, episode 88 coming at you. I am your host, Randy Hammond, alongside Matt Bushnell, wishing all of you a happy new year. Welcome to 2022 on the show. Matt, I hope the new year brings you everything your little heart desires.
Well, it already has, Randy. A Bears win over the Giants, baby.
Oh, man, that game was awful for me anyway. Not really, though. At the same time, I kind of want it to get really, really bad, so maybe some things will actually happen. But, hey, we're going to talk about a lot of good football today. In that game, not particularly one of those instances of good football. We are on a tight schedule today, Matt Bushnell. So, quickly, number 88, who comes to mind? Anyone?
Michael Irvin. He was one of my favorite wide receivers growing up.
There you go. Oh, the Cowboys historically have that 88 number. CeeDee Lamb wears it now. Des Bryant used to wear it. For me, I'm going to stick with the Colts duo. 87, I went Reggie Wayne this time, sticking with Marvin Harrison, the Hall of Fame wide receiver with Indianapolis. So there you go, number 88. Great number, great wide receiver number. All right. Now we're going to get right into it because last night was a big night on Monday Night Football. Division rivalry in the AFC North, Steelers, Browns, and big talking point, Matt Bushnell, obviously, it is suspected to be Ben Roethlisberger's last game at Heinz Field as Steelers quarterback. We have, I guess, some thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger, I would suppose, but we don't need to get into all of that quite yet. I would say we wait till his official retirement announcement to truly discuss his career in totality. But I do think that the Steelers played inspired football for him in this game and were able to win 26-14 over the Browns, stay alive in the playoff hunt. Now 8-7-1 the Steelers are. But if this is Big Ben's last game, Matt, I just want to point out 46 passing attempts for 123 yards. Look, we've been saying Ben kind of looks washed all year long. This didn't change my mind on that. But if you're a Steelers fan and you love Ben Roethlisberger, I'm sure you enjoyed the outcome of last night.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that he hangs it up after watching his performance all year this year. There's nothing that would indicate that, he is going to magically find the fountain of youth here. It was a good game for the Steelers to win. It's nice to see legends go out with a win, all thoughts aside about how we may feel or other people may feel about Ben Roethlisberger. But overall, you can't be too upset with the Monday Night Football broadcast that was saved once again by the Manning cast. So if you're able to watch the Manning cast, you watched a pretty entertaining show. Baker Mayfield's just trash at this point. It's the injuries and all this stuff. If he's that hurt, and this is my issue with it, for all the guts and moxie talk, if you're that hurt, let somebody else play. And this hasn't been something new for Baker Mayfield. We've seen this kind of throughout his career. Even last year, we were a little bit concerned. He was always the question mark. And he played safe football, but you and I both thought it was more Stefanski than Mayfield. Especially with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt running the football as much as they did and utilizing the tight ends. So to me, it's a nice win for Ben Roethlisberger, but at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield kind of really stunk up the joint. TJ Watt, I think, solidified his defensive player of the year last night with his 4 sacks.
I'm telling you, man, defensive player of the year, 21 and a half. He's played 12 full games. He's insane.
Yeah, I think it's a wrap for defensive player of the year. I don't even know how anyone else can argue it. I know in football life we have the push for Tavon Diggs. All ranking aside, it's great that he has double-digit interceptions, but that's extremely misleading. But good win for Pittsburgh overall. And once again, thank you to the Manning cast for really, really a good show. And we have Henry in the comments talking about when Eli called Aaron toe injury fake. That was very amusing.
The Manning cast, truly one of the gifts that 2021 has left for us. Every Monday Night Football, every Monday Night Football that doesn't have the Manning cast makes me sad. But those two together, love them. I don't even know how long it's truly going to last. One of them, might own a team next year, or at least be a part of a group that does, and Peyton Manning. So maybe Eli will have to find something else. But I thought the segment with Snoop was amazing. The Snoop Dogg. I never know how that's going to go with Snoop and the Mannings, but that was so funny. Snoop gave Eli a chain. It was Eli's birthday. It was like a big thing about how they're going to create a group. Like that was always, that's good conversation. That always makes me laugh. And then the Goodell stuff, I feel like, you know, they're not going to criticize Goodell. You know, it would have been nice to ask him some harder questions there, but it would have been cool to see them to ask him, but Peyton kept calling Goodell coach and Eli kept making fun of him for it. So that also made me laugh a bunch too. But yeah, this game pretty boring. It was 13-0 in the second half. The Browns scored 2 touchdowns in the second half that seemingly meant like they were almost meaningless to me. They meant nothing. I thought Najee Harris looked great in this game, 28 for 188, and had the game sealing touchdown. So he looks good, but the TJ Watt thing is his remarkable. 4 sacks in the game.
Yeah,
good for him. If he gets a sack and a half in the finale against the Ravens next week, he'll have the record. And there's no asterisks with the extra week. He hasn't played every game this year, so to me that's more impressive than Strahan's record. That hurts me to say, but some people already have a little bit of a question mark on Strahan's record based on Brett Favre's actions when that happened. So this would be a legit sack record, and I don't think anyone would really be that mad unless you're, you know, a fan of the AFC North. So
yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Matt Bushnell, one more primetime game. Only 2. Right? Remember, no Thursday night games. No Thursday. No more Thursday.
By the way, real quick, I had the Steelers winning and with the points that they were getting 2.5, so they easily covered. I didn't keep track of yours, Randy. Did you have the Steelers? And
no, I had the Browns, so I got that one wrong.
Oh boy. Okay.
I thought about changing it too. Like everyone was talking about the Big Ben thing, and I was like, maybe I should change it. I didn't. I kept it because I was like, I don't want to overthink it. Maybe the Browns play spoiler. I should have known better. Big Ben never has lost to the Browns in his career at home. Like that's pretty crazy considering he's played for so long.
Yeah, agreed.
Except for that playoff game, the regular season, I should say.
Yep.
All right, Sunday Night Football. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this one, Matt, because another divisional game in the NFC North this time. But when a game started by Sean Mannion, probably not going to go too well for you. And this was a slow start by the Packers, mind you. So this game was 20-3 at halftime, finishing up 37-10. Packers roll. They clinched the division and the 1 seed in the NFC. So don't expect a ton from Green Bay in Week 18. And Minnesota has been eliminated there, 7-9. Like I said, Kirk Cousins did not play in this game, and it kind of feels like it is the end for the coach, Mike Zimmer, too. He was a little bit snippy after the game about why Kellen Mond didn't play, so could be changes in Minnesota as well. But Green Bay, I don't think they're dominant, but they are clearly deserving of the top seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I think the one thing you can say about it all year long, they've been the best team in the NFC. I don't think that is debatable at this point. I did have the Packers plus the points. They were getting 6.5. That was an easy bet there with Sean Mannion starting. Not much to say. I think Mike Zimmer's definitely out as head coach. I mean, what's more damning for a young quarterback than for your coach to say, I see him every day in practice.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't. Yeah. You know, you're done at that point. Just stop at the door and pack your bags. But no, I think Zimmer's out. The Vikings, man, they could finish tied for second in the division or third. I'm not sure how that will work out with the Bears, who they play next week. So that'll be an interesting matchup. But I go back to Aaron Rodgers real quick. I believe he's going to win back-to-back MVPs, which would leave him, and this was on the Manning cast last night, one shy of Peyton Manning's record 5 MVPs. So does Aaron come back next year to topple Peyton? Who knows? But yeah, no, this game was non-competitive from the jump.
Yeah, I certainly think Rodgers is the MVP. Look no further than what Jordan Love did against the Chiefs in that game that Rodgers missed. Yeah. That to me just shows me how valuable Rodgers is. And then look at Devontae Adams, 11 catches for 136 yards and a touchdown. Like Rodgers made Adams into, the best receiver in the league, and maybe, top 3, whatever you want to say. But that Adams Rodgers connection is as good as anyone in this current day of football. So Packers roll. The NFC goes through Lambeau Field this year in the playoffs. So we saw that last year. Didn't work out for Green Bay. We'll see what happens this year for what is being called the last dance for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Rest of the recaps now, Matt Bushnell, and some of these we do not need to talk a ton about. In the first game on the docket, I do not really want to talk about that much. It is your Bears not only ruining the Giants' second first-round draft pick, but also ruining parts of my Sunday. Look, The Bears are not a good football team. I think you and I can agree on this, especially when Andy Dalton plays. But man, they embarrassed the Giants 29-3. I think if you get that embarrassed by a Bears team that I think has real flaws, you are a complete and utter joke of an organization. And we can talk about Mike Glennon. We can talk about Joe Judge. My God, the Giants are exhausting, and I'm so ready for the season to be over with.
Yeah, well, the scary thing is it could have been a lot more. Andy Dalton played like dog crap. He should have thrown 4 interceptions, but thank God the Giants defense sucks so bad that they had no interest in catching those passes. Really, when it comes to the Bears, I don't think talent is necessarily the issue here. They have talent on both sides of the football. Their secondary is okay. Robert Quinn, hats off to him, breaking the Bears all-time franchise record for sacks. He finished the game with Sunday's game with a total of 18 on the season. He gets to add to that probably against Minnesota. So we'll see how many he officially ends with, but congrats to Robert Quinn for a hell of a year. But I think this may be, this just solidifies Matt Nagy has to go. I think Ryan Pace should too, but that will be withheld for later. But it's amazing if you watch the two teams, Randy, and I think I said this in the chat, I may not have, but you would have no idea that Matt Nagy was the one that was going to get fired and Joe Judge was going to be the one to keep his job the way those teams played. The Giants utterly gave up right from the jump, strip sack by Gibson. Gibson had 3 sacks that game, 2 forced fumbles, and just the fact that Joe Judge and that offense were down 26 points and they went into kill the clock mode by running the football probably saved Mike Glennon a worse stat line than what he already had because the Bears were just dominating that Giants offensive line. But
you mean it could have gotten worse than -10 passing yards?
It probably could have. I think the Steelers had 8 sacks last night or 9 sacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Bears probably could have racked up 10 if Saquon and Booker didn't get like 60 carries.
Yeah, now the Giants fans are like, oh, Saquon finally had 100 yards rushing. Like, they scored 3 points.
Yeah. I mean, you can see the Bears were just like, you're going to run the football? Okay, right. Go ahead. That's fine. Let's just get out of here.
The Bears were totally fine with that strategy by the Giants. Yes. To Ricky's point, the game was over 18 seconds in. The Bears were up 7-0, literally 18 seconds into the football game. It is not an exaggeration. I didn't even have my beer. I didn't have a beer yet. I didn't even have a sip of anything yet. I was like, they don't even have the ball anymore, and they started the game with the ball. And it's so hard to be as bad as the Giants are. And I know they don't have the worst record, but they look like the worst team in the league every single week. And for some reason, they are committing to Judge. Nothing and nobody is worth keeping in this organization anymore. I'm done with it. Get them all out of my life, please.
Yeah.
And Judge embarrassed himself in the press conference too, which, straight up lying about things. I'm done. I can't with the guy anymore. So, All right. Don't need to talk about the Giants. They're going to finish 4-13. The Bears, I need you to lose. Please, for the love of God, Vikings, do me one favor and lose. So, all right. To Western New York now, where the Bills could not cover the 14.5-point spread, and they only won by 14. Freaking Bills. 29-15 over the Falcons. So the Bills still control their own destiny in the the AFC East, 10-6 with 1 game left. I believe it's against the Jets. Josh Allen played like garbage in this game. They were losing at 1 point 15-14 in this game. This was a weird one. And Josh Allen finishes 11-26 for 120 yards and 3 picks. But what Josh Allen does on the ground is very valuable. 15 for 81 and 2 touchdowns. And they ran the ball well with Singletary, who finished 23 of 110 for 2 touchdowns. The Falcons, I got to give them a lot of credit for being competitive in this game. I did not expect it. And they came in and they battled. Not so much thanks to Matt Ryan, but for the rest of the team. So the Bills, 29-15 over Atlanta. Matt, what were your thoughts?
Hey, man, I was like, right now I look at it 4-0 for my spread picks so far. And I was just looking at the game. I was like, man, it's 2-0. I was like, man, later on in the afternoon, I was like, wow, 14-2. This is going to get ugly fast. And I was like, shit, there goes my bet on the Falcons because I did place money on them to cover. And then they're up 15-14. I'm like, holy shit, Atlanta might win this thing. And then the Bills go on 14 points.
Half point killed me. The half point.
Yeah, God bless that half point, man, because it was excellent for me because I get to see, some dollars in my pocket with that one. So congrats to the Falcons for covering. Phew. I'm just glad. Just thank God. On the road, the Falcons covered. God bless America, because I didn't want to lose that one.
Yeah, I look, if you're a Falcons fan, I think I'd be optimistic about the head coach. The culture he's building is truly a competitive one, it feels like. And you need a quarterback upgrade. You're one of these teams that Falcons are going to be one of these teams that coming up in the draft. I expect them to be targeting somebody. I don't know who, but they're not going to be picking that high. So it could be a good year for a team like that to need a quarterback. And if they could sit under Matt Ryan for a year, it could be a good situation. So I like the Falcons going forward, but their season is over.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd move heaven and earth to get Deshaun Watson if I'm Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, with Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley, you expect him to come back. I mean, it could be a bright future. I'd have no issues if I'm Atlanta. Like, I would trade draft picks for Deshaun Watson. I know they're going to have cap space. I don't think they keep Ryan next year. And Felipe asked a question in the chat: how many teams would be better off with Matt Ryan as their quarterback? Not many.
Yeah.
Just not many. It's like the same question with Ben Roethlisberger. If you watch these two play, it's just the end of the road.
I would say maybe like 3 to 5 teams, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And it's got to be like a dome team, when it plays in the South. And I want none of these guys in a cold weather situation either. So, All right. Perhaps the game of the year. I think it was certainly the game of the weekend. It is the Bengals coming back down two touchdowns on the Kansas City Chiefs, and perhaps derailing the Chiefs' entire season because they were the 1 seed and looking good. And now they might not have it. The Bengals, this might be one of the biggest wins in their franchise's history, to be honest with you. Their recent franchise's history, I'll say. Obviously, back in the day, they used to be much better. But the Bengals now 10-6 and clinched the AFC North. Congratulations to them for the first time since 2015. Joe Burrow. You and I questioned whether he was worth the number 1 overall pick. We weren't 100% sure, but he has proved us absolutely wrong, because they were talking about division in the preseason. You and I both predicted them to come in last in the division, and before the season started. No. The Bengals are impressive.
I picked the Steelers to come in last.
Fair enough. You picked the Steelers to come in last. Fair enough. Regardless,
I got my face still.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough for that. But the Bengals, I am constantly impressed. They are one of the most watchable, entertaining teams of the season, in my opinion. Burrow, with the receiving core that he has, with Chase, who had a record day, 11 for 266 and 3 touchdowns, unbelievable. T. Higgins is a stud. I still love Tyler Boyd, even though he's the 3rd guy on the docket there. And then Mixon running all over the place too. I don't know how, with the Bengals passing up on the offensive line, if they're not quite the disaster we expected them to be. Still don't love Zach Taylor, but you can't deny the Bengals are truly an entertaining watch each and every week. They play entertaining and fun football. I think that's something we want. And when we watch games, we just want it to be fun. And the Bengals are the absolute definition of that. And for the Chiefs, look, I had high hopes for you, and I liked your defense a hell of a lot more coming in. And man, I got to reevaluate. I think, I don't know.
Well, I'm going to take 2 things from here. One, it's in Cincinnati. And, anytime you travel on the road, I think it's tougher to win, obviously. It's not easy to win. A lot of the home teams won this past weekend. So that's first and foremost. And then I think second of all, when we take a look at the Chiefs, I can't excuse the defense. And I'll get to the offense in a second. When you allow a conversion on the 3rd and 27, I'm sorry, you just deserve to lose that game.
They refused to change the single coverage. It drove me nuts.
Yeah, like how many touchdowns do you want Jamar Chase to score against you? Like at some point, it's just ridiculous. And you didn't score a single point in the second half. You had 28 points in the first half. Patrick Mahomes looked really good, and this team just kind of went back to their old style earlier in the season. I think it's good for the Chiefs in the long run, though. And I'll say the reason why is because it's a wake-up call. It's like, hey, you need to keep on playing 4 quarters of football. You need to be aggressive, and you need to really adjust your defense. And this is the problem I have with Steve Spagnuolo sometimes, is that, and actually a lot of head coaches and offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, when you get so stuck on a game plan and you refuse to change it based on what is happening in live time, that's a problem. like once Jamar Chase got 160 something yards, I'm like, okay, screw this. Double team him all game. I'm rolling double coverage over to his side. I don't care if he's on the other side of the field, in the slot, in the backfield. I got two guys on Jamar Chase. I'll take my chances with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And, you know, when you let Burrow throw, the last two teams, let them throw. The Chargers and the Chiefs now, let them throw for, I think, 970 plus yards. And I think it was 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Yeah.
It's come on, man. You got to learn. You got to watch the tape. Look at the tape. Take away his best weapon, and then let the other guys beat you if they're going to beat you. But to me, I was disappointed, but I think it's a good thing. And even if the Chiefs get the second seed, that's not too shabby. Because I honestly, Randy, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about Tennessee, but they're one and done. I don't see them winning a playoff game.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Titans next, but I mean, you might be right. It still might end up going through Kansas City if that's the case anyway, with Tennessee being the 1 seed, which I think Mike Vrabel might have a strong case for coach of the year, given the fact that, you know, neither of us thought they were going to be that good this year. So, yeah, look, this game was unbelievable. I thought the Chiefs had it in hand, and then the defense for the Chiefs just kept letting Chase get loose. Burrow, to be exact, you said, you know, how many passing yards? It is exactly 971 passing yards his last 2 games and 9 touchdowns. This is incredible stuff. Burrow, I mean, he was shredding them outside the numbers. Like he was unbelievable. Like he's so good. He was 30 of 39 for 446 yards in this game and 4 touchdowns. You still sacked 4 times on top of that. Yeah. Like people are operating at a high level with bad offensive lines. It is possible. So don't let fans of teams tell you, oh, my quarterback stinks because the offensive line. No, like if they were good enough, things would happen. And Mahomes still had a good game too. 26 of 35 for 260 and 2 touchdowns. Like he still did well. It was hard to contain that Cincinnati attack. And when they're clicking like this, I don't know if any team in the AFC is truly going to want to play them in the postseason. So just at the same time, they could also lose to anybody. They're one of these teams. Like I think they could beat anybody and they could lose to anybody. And I think the Bills are a similar thing where I think the Bills could beat anybody and they could lose to anybody. And I think this year is so unique in that aspect where nobody has really taken the reins as being like, we're the favorite. I'd be totally shocked if you lost. At this point in the season, I kind of feel like anyone could beat anybody. And that's why I'm so excited for this year's playoffs.
Yeah, and a shout out to a couple of people that had Joe Burrow as their fantasy quarterback, and obviously won them quite a bit of fantasy football championships in the Football Life League. Felipe won with Joe Burrow, so congrats to him. But yeah, anybody else that had Joe Burrow, man, congratulations on a hell of a year. Bright future for the kid, but I do stand by. They're going to have to get an offensive line for him to have any longevity because he took a hell of a beating in that last. Oh God, what was it? The third to last play. It looked like he hurt his knee, and you know, just stuff like that you don't want to see from your quarterback, and it's not good. But Cincinnati has a very bright future. I'd be very happy if I were them.
Oh man, he's an assassin, though. I mean, I'd be so happy to have Joe Burrow as my quarterback on my team. I just love him so much, and now I think their mindset is going forward is that they have a core set. So now you do need to draft some offensive linemen. Like you wanted to take Chase to get the Burrow connection. Okay, fine. That has worked out for you, obviously. Now you need to protect your quarterback. You need to protect the most valuable asset you have. And now I think that the Bengals will do that this year, upcoming in April. So, all right. Now, we're going to not talk about every game as much as that one, but, you know, the next one we should do have to at least mention the Titans just absolutely demolished the Dolphins, who had coming off of a 7 straight winning streak. The Titans now 2 wins in a row and now have the tiebreaker as the AFC's top seed. Hard to believe. And you know what? I will say it. I think Mike Vrabel is the coach of the year. Because you don't have Derrick Henry for half of the year. You don't have A.J. Brown for a ton of time. Julio has been a failed experiment there in Tennessee. Your defense is very inconsistent, I would say. And then Ryan Tannehill's your quarterback. So if you're the Titans and you're a Titans fan, you're like, how the hell are we the 1 seed? I just think they're very well coached. Ultimately, it was a good run for the Dolphins. Feel good story. Good for them not giving up on 1-7, but ultimately you're not good enough this year, and they have been eliminated from the playoffs as well. So the only chance they have at anything is really to spoil the Patriots season in week 18. So the Titans 34-3, and I can't even believe that we're talking about them as the 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, well deserved. I agree with you, Vrabel. I mean, if he doesn't get coach of the year, he should get plenty of consideration for it. I think Matt LaFleur is another guy that deserves credit for, along with Arthur Smith as well. I think those three guys should be in the running for it when you take a look at it from a football perspective. To me, just real quick and short, for as much love and as good as I was feeling about Tua, this game was like 18 steps back. It was awful. It was brutal. And when you needed it the most, he couldn't come through. And I just think, I'll say this, there'll be no shortage of offers for the Texans to choose from when Deshaun Watson becomes available to be traded, because they're going to get it. They're going to get 3 1s for Deshaun, even with all the legal trouble. So it just depends on who lands him. Because you'll have Carolina, you'll have this team, and obviously the Falcons, I think, should be in play as well here. From the Titans, congrats. I do think they got the Texans next week. You said correct. So
no, I think the Colts have. Oh yeah, they do have the Texans. The Colts have the Jags.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Titans wrap up the 1 seed next week. So congrats to Vrabel. Good job. Ryan Tannehill really helped kind of carry the load here, surprisingly enough. And they found AJ Brown, and AJ Brown's been the magic elixir. So
yeah,
congrats to Tennessee.
I think we need to give a shout out to Deontay Foreman too, because he has filled in for Derrick Henry pretty nicely, I would say. But Henry's expected to practice this week. He might come back next week just to get some of the rust off, because you're obviously going to have a bye. So if you just throw him back in there in a playoff game, you might not, get what you're looking for. So I think it's smart to get Henry some love this weekend if you can. While we're talking about awards with Vrabel, did you notice that the third person now for the favorite in the MVP is Joe Burrow, who we just talked about? I don't think Burrow has a chance to win the MVP. I think he's been too inconsistent this year, but he might be one of these guys we're talking about in the future as a consistent MVP finalist. And you got to love to see it. The league is in good hands. The other quarterback now we're going to move forward, who I think he's not going to get any MVP votes, but deserves some MVP conversation, is Derek Carr, because the Raiders should be, all things considered, a disaster, and they are not, and they are competitive, and they have a real chance to make the playoffs if they win this week. But the Raiders go into Indianapolis and they win with Carson Wentz back, and this was basically all on the shoulders, just much like the whole season has been on Derek Carr. And Derek Carr hasn't really, he didn't play great in this game. He had 2 picks, but when it mattered the most, he made an unbelievable play. I mean, I feel like he made so many unbelievable plays to Hunter Renfrow all season, but man, Derek Carr, congrats to you, man. If there's not an MVP award for you in your future, you deserve some kind of recognition for how you've kept the Raiders afloat this year. Now 9-7, huge win over Indy. Indy has been red hot, winning games shorthanded. Frank Reich, I mean, they're talking about him for Coach of the Year. The Raiders, I don't know how they've done it, but they are very much still alive. But to me, it is, number 4, Derek Carr. If you don't have respect for the guy now, you should. So shout out to the Raiders and Derek Carr, because I did not see it coming.
Yeah, this is actually the first game the Colts lost where Jonathan Taylor had over 100 yards rushing this season. So, I mean, just a really gutsy and impressive performance. God, I wish I could remember the Raiders coach right now.
Rich Bisaccia?
Yeah. I mean,
Rick Bisaccia?
Bisaccia. Rick Bisaccia. Yes. I mean, he should get some consideration for being the next head coach of the Raiders, ironically enough. I mean, he took a very bad situation. They haven't been great this year, but you take a look at the roster, with Darren Waller not being 100%, Hunter Renfrow really showing up, Deshaun Jackson, kind of a guy, and then also with losing Henry Ruggs with that just an incredibly idiotic driving while intoxicated situation. The Raiders need some help, but Bisaccia has done enough, I feel, where it's like, this guy might be a decent candidate to lead this team. And not coincidentally enough, special teams guy. I'm big on special teams coaches, getting the head coaching job, because they have to watch over the entire roster, because they constantly have to move pieces around. But good for the Raiders. For Frank Reich, I mean, this is a huge blow to his coach of the year. Any hope for coach of the year, it's gone now. And as well, I mean, I don't think the Colts have locked up a playoff spot by any stretch. They got to beat the Jags.
They have to win. Now they are in a win and in situation. Luckily, they get Jacksonville, but anything's possible ultimately. And you could tell in this game that Wentz hadn't practiced all week. He had been on the COVID list, and he didn't get activated until Saturday. So you could kind of see that. I thought he looked shaky overall. But look, this is about the Raiders to me. The Colts are going to make the playoffs, but the Raiders are also, once the Colts win, the Raiders and Chargers play Sunday Night Football for whoever wins is in the playoffs. That is a huge game, and I'm glad they put that on Sunday night. I feel like I should mention, to add to the Raiders' dysfunction, rookie Nate Hobbs was also arrested, I believe, the night of this game, and I think that was also a DUI. I'm not 100% sure.
Wow.
But he is basically off the team now too. So the fact that this is still somehow being held together is a huge, huge credit to the leadership at the top. And that to me is the fill-in coach, Bisaccia, and Derek Carr. So if they're eager to move on to Derek Carr for some odd reason, this offseason, team should be lining up to trade for that guy.
By the way, and we did tell the people, pick the Raiders to cover. We both had the Raiders covering, so.
Sure did. Absolutely. I loved that line. I thought that was too big. And I kind of felt like the Colts were due for a little bit of a lag. I didn't expect them to lose, but well, here we are. Yep. All right, game we're not going to touch on really. I'm just going to say the Patriots handled their business at home against the Jaguars. They won 50-10, 55-0. There's more points than the Giants have scored in their last 5 games in one game. It's just kind of shows them more about the Giants than anything. But hey, good job for them. Mac Jones threw 3 touchdown passes, and that's it. That game was over
before it started.
28-3.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're not going to touch on that one, Matt Bushnell, for obvious reasons. Patriots, they win on Sunday. They are also in, so they need to win. All right. Now the Bucs and the Jets. The Jets had at one point a 2-score lead, a 2-touchdown lead even on the Bucs in this game, which is hard to believe. But Tom Brady did Tom Brady things and threw a game-winning touchdown pass with, I believe, less than a minute to go. And the Bucs won 28-24 over the Jets. But Matt, unfortunately, we have some non-football, maybe kind of football-related things to come out of this game. Randomly, in the middle of the game, Antonio Brown just starts taking his pads off. He threw it in against the bench, started throwing his shirt and his gloves and his wristbands to the crowd and waved goodbye, started doing jumping jacks in the end zone. I didn't know if he got ejected. I was at a place where I couldn't hear what was going on, so I didn't really know. All Twitter kept saying is he quit, he quit, and it came out that Bruce Arians told him to go back into the game. At one point, he thought he was too injured to go back into the game, and then I apparently, I guess this is up for interpretation, but Bruce Arians said, fine, you can leave. So then he stormed off the field after Mike Evans and O.J. Howard tried to console him. Regardless, this has been the Antonio Brown thing. If he wasn't as great as he was, teams would not tolerate this. Yeah. And I don't know if this is the end of the line for Antonio Brown, but it certainly feels like it. He's still in New York, never flew back with the team. He went to the Nets game last night. I'm kind of over Antonio Brown. He is almost peak diva receiver with all of the nonsense he's been through for the last 5 years. Antonio Brown, if he's going through some stuff, Matt, he should get help. But this was one of the more bizarre things I've seen in a football game.
Yeah, and it really took away from a really good game too. Yeah. And the Jets played their asses off this game. The Bucs look like they have some issues going on beyond Antonio Brown. But I think at the end of the day, when we discuss Antonio Brown, the perfect hit on him, like, those scrambled eggs, I don't want to make light of it because CTE is a real thing, but this is around the time frame where CTE really starts kicking in and does some pretty nasty things to you. I don't want to put it all on CTE because like a wise man once told me, money just makes you more of who you are. Yeah. And the more Antonio Brown got paid and the more chances he got, the more he acted out. And that could be due to CTE. It could be due to brain trauma. It could be due to a lot of things. But I think when we take a look at this situation with him, he's just not well. Like he's mentally ill, whether it's CTE, mental illness, whatever it is with him, he is not a well person and he needs medical treatment, whether it's medication, counseling, all of the above. You just don't blow those chances. And this is it. I don't see how you could bring him on to an NFL team anymore, Randy. Like with the Tom Brady, the guy who vouched for him, the only reason he's in the league right now, you just can't do it. You can't do it. You shouldn't do it. And it's it's ridiculous, and I guess it stemmed from, to give further context into it, BA wanted him to get back into the game. Antonio Brown's like, no, my ankle's hurting me. Well, as if you watch the game, Gronk was getting most of the targets from Tom Brady, and Antonio Brown went over to Brady and said, "What, you just going to keep on feeding your boy?" And Brady looked pissed. So then, he kind of threw his tantrum, and then all of a sudden his ankle starts hurting. So BA is like, "Come on, we want to get you your incentives. Go back in the game." And Antonio Brown said no, and then it just erupted. And like, a sane person does not do that. No. You don't throw away $1 million, because with that, he probably would have got some more incentives that would have added up to $1 million. He was basically pissed away $1 million, and I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money, especially for a guy who's playing on the league minimum. So to me, AB's done. Really took away from a great game. As a Jets fan, which I'm not, but if you are a Jets fan out there, people, I know Jacob just popped in for a quick second. You got to be encouraged. They play tough, but Tom Brady does what Tom Brady does to the Jets all the time and beats them. So
I would feel good about the Jets going forward. I think they're in a good situation with a young team with more picks and a young coach. I think they're developing nicely. Josina Anderson tweeted earlier that this may not be the end of the line for Antonio Brown. The Bucs have not officially cut him, nor our team's throwing him out the door. Josina said in her tweet that it is not her opinion that teams would be interested in Antonio Brown. That is what she has been told, that teams would be actually willing to bring Antonio Brown in. I thought the Bucs were about the last team willing to do that, considering they had Tom Brady, they had Bruce Arians, and overall a support system for him that I don't know who else would truly have. But apparently there are teams willing to take a chance on the talent. And that goes to show how talented the guy is. But at some point, the headache overtakes the talent. And at this point in Antonio Brown's career, I would say that has to be the case eventually. I mean, look, Antonio Brown, if he could have stayed healthy, if he could have been together like for the last 5 years and had his own, mind right and played, we're talking about a Hall of Fame guy. Yeah. We're talking about a potential top 10 receiver ever. His run, I think it was 2012 to 2017, is about as good of a stretch of wide receiver play that you'll ever see in your life. Yeah. But once he left the Steelers, which, let's face it, may have been the true foundation of his success, it started to fall apart after that. The Raiders, he never even played a game with. That interesting Hard Knocks season still is just so bizarre to me. And then he's had to run with the Bucs now, where he won a Super Bowl, and good for them. I don't think that's a failed experiment. If you're a Bucs fan, you can't say, "Oh, Antonio Brown has ruined us." No, he helped you win a Super Bowl. Yeah. I think that has value. So, yep. Look, if he has, I am not going to sit here and pretend like I understand mental illness, because I don't. It's not something that anyone could truly understand. I think it's different based on each person. If he is truly ill and truly sick, I hope he gets the help that he needs. Ultimately, this is a serious thing. We watch football, we understand there's risks to it, but this is some, after effects that he could be having from hits of the past. So, yeah, I mean,
in my opinion, it'd be wildly irresponsible for any franchise to give this guy another chance, because what we've seen, there is no situation that's going to help this man get better. This is going to keep on occurring. It's going to keep on getting worse. And what do you have in place? Imagine if you have a young quarterback, it'd be disastrous. In my opinion, anybody that signs him, it's just foolish. No one in the NFL can contain this human. If Bill Belichick couldn't do it with Brady and they had to get rid of him, Bruce Arians and Brady couldn't get, I mean, we're talking about the greatest quarterback of all time to many people, and he still did all this stuff. You're sabotaging your own franchise.
Now, would it shock you, Matt, is if he just is still a Buck and they just pretend like this whole thing never happened?
What I heard is they're suspending him because they don't want him to go to another team, and then they'll cut him once he's ineligible to play in the playoffs. Okay.
Yeah, that probably is the most likely situation. The Bucs' best case scenario is they're the 2 seed. They're 12-4. They obviously can't get the 1 seed, so we'll see. The Bucs might have to go back to Green Bay like they did last year, but they don't feel like the same team to me that they did last year. So they're gonna have to clean some stuff up for me to feel better about them.
Yep.
All right. Matt, time to move on to the NFC East. Washington had a chance to, hurt the Eagles' playoff chances, and it was not enough. They had a lead for a lot of this game. They were up 16-7 at halftime. I thought for maybe there's a chance, but the Eagles clamped down on defense the second half and were able to move down the field and get the job done. The Eagles win 20-16. I believe they clinched a playoff berth at 9-7. Look, you don't need 4 years to rebuild. Don't let Dave Gettleman tell you that, folks. The Eagles did it in essentially one season. And Nick Sirianni is a first-year head coach who looks pretty competent, although I think people made fun of his press conference stuff. Good for them. The Eagles are a vet squad mixed in with some young players here and there. And the culture overall in Philly is a winning one, it appears, because now they're back in the postseason. And I know they have had an easy schedule, but I think they play a unique they have their own style. They have their own personality, the way they play. They run the ball. They play solid defense. And overall, they're very competitive. And it looks like they all seem to give a shit. So as much as I hate it, Philly back in the postseason now at 9-7.
Yeah, I think Philly showed the mental toughness. I think with the Washington football team, it's a bad stain on the season. I don't know if Ron Rivera is going to survive it. I don't know if Dan Snyder is going to be forced to sell the team, which he probably never will, because he seems like he's protected by everybody else. He must have a lot of shit on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But good for the Eagles. I caught glimpses of the game. Jalen Hurts played a pretty clean game. Not a lot of complaints. I still think they need a wide receiver. Yeah,
you couldn't get me any rushing touchdowns for my fantasy championship.
Well, Boston Scott had to get all of those.
Oh, yeah, I love that guy.
But at the end of the day, good for the Eagles going back to the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win a playoff game, but good for them going back.
Yeah, I think they're a team that if you face a good defense in the playoffs, you can stop them. I think if you make Hurts stay in the pocket and contain him and make him throw, that's your recipe for success by playing Philly. Once you let him run, obviously it's kind of like a Lamar Jackson situation. You're in a little bit more of a trouble. But yeah, I don't know what to make of Washington. I expect them to win this week against the Giants. But Rivera, I think, said he wants to play some younger players this week, see what they have, which I think is smart. But I don't know if that means he has job security. But Washington's very clear they need a quarterback. Taylor Heineke had played well in this game, I thought, but ultimately he had hurt them in too many games for it to matter. So I want to see what Washington's going to do in the offseason. I'm interested to see. All this game did also was confirm the Giants are going to be in last place again in the division. So that's fun. Yeah. All right, moving on. This game was came down to the very end, and I personally love how it ended because it's my guy. But the Ravens were on the brink of spoiling the Rams' bid to win the NFC West. It was not enough because Odell Beckham Jr. said, no, I'm winning this game. Matt Stafford trusted him on a 4th and short where Odell caught it, stretched out his long arms for a first down, and then he did catch the go-ahead touchdown with less than a minute to go in Baltimore. It's not a secret. I'm a big fan of Odell Beckham Jr. I still hated when the Giants traded for him. Obviously did not work out with the Browns. I think more and more you're seeing how much Baker Mayfield had an impact on that, because Odell, while not putting up huge numbers for them, has been a huge number 2 option never since Robert Woods went down. I don't think people talk about that enough. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is still the guy, but to have him as a compliment, I think he has 5 touchdowns in 6 games for the Rams. That is huge, huge, huge for Odell. If he goes into the playoffs with confidence, if Stafford trusts him, I think that's massive for the Rams because it adds an element that they are missing without Woods. And honestly, Odell at his peak, I think, is better than Woods. So I think it's good for the Rams as well. And Sony Michel running the ball really well for the Rams somehow. So the Rams also have a chance for that 2 seed. They're looking good. Also NFC West champions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep this short and sweet with the Rams because Matthew Stafford really worries me. He threw a brutal pick 6, and he was not good in this game. Also, no, he wasn't. And the Ravens don't look very good offensively. So there's a lot of things that both these teams need to clean up. Obviously, the Rams are going to the playoffs. The Ravens are not at this point. I think we can safely assume. So at the end of the day, Stafford's got to play better if the Rams are going to have a chance, and I'm starting to get concerned about that, but we'll see.
Yeah, you can't really love the way Stafford has played the last 2 weeks. I think he's had 3 and then 2 interceptions in back-to-back games. So Look, the Ravens have just been overcome with injuries. I think they've lost 5 in a row now, so 8-8 on the season for them. They have been eliminated from the playoffs. But Tyler Huntley, I think you could be happy that you have a backup quarterback, guy who can play, similar to Lamar in a way. But next year you need Lamar to stay healthy, and you see what you have, because the Ravens were looking like a potential 1 seed in the AFC at one point, and then their season gets completely derailed by injuries. So it sucks for Baltimore that they're done. But the Rams look. I liked what the Rams look like, but I would also agree if I'm that Stafford scares me just a little bit. All right. The Chargers, we don't need to spend a ton of time on this one, but this is also an AFC West matchup. But Drew Lock, anytime Drew Lock starts, I do not love it. So, and example A, once again, Chargers roll 34-13 over the Broncos. Now the Broncos eliminated from the playoffs. The Chargers now in a win-and-in situation against the Raiders in Week 18. Justin Herbert looked pretty good, I thought, in this game. Threw a nice ball to Mike Williams, had a nice touchdown throw to Keenan Allen, and then Austin Eckler back obviously adds another element to them. So 9-7 for the Chargers. Season is not a failure yet. I think if they miss the playoffs, it is a failure. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. But overall, the Broncos clearly need a quarterback.
Yeah, Broncos need a quarterback, and they're probably going to need a new head coach, because I have a feeling they're probably firing Vic Fangio. When you get 3 seasons and you don't produce anything with a team like the Broncos, it's hard, with Drew Lock being a massive failure and with the team being up for sale, it sounds like. And, I don't see Vic coming back. I don't see Drew Lock or this quarterback situation being resolved. So, a really good defensive coordinator should be available for some teams next season. So
yeah, he'll get a job. No doubt about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's Chargers, good stuff.
Yeah, not going to spend a ton of time on that one, so we're going to move on. 49ers took care of business with Trey Lance starting a quarterback over the Texans. They improved to 9-7 with a 23-7 win over the Texans. The defense won this game for them, obviously. If I'm a Niners fan, I would not feel great about Trey Lance. I don't think he looks great. I think he clearly looks like a project. Even the deep ball to Debo still looked like it lacked some zip on it. It kind of looked like a bit of a dud. I don't know. I would feel nervous knowing I traded up to 3 overall to take a guy who might be 2 years away from being even a decent starter in the NFL. So that's my takeaway from this one overall. Other than that, I don't have many thoughts other than the Niners have to win and they're in, I think.
Yeah, to me, I plan on taking a look at the coach's tape on the 49ers, but always my impression with Trey Lance, he is far away. You take a look, he's late to reads. He doesn't pick up what's going on fast enough. And that's just from a lack of playing. Luckily he played the Texans because they just look like shit. So I think there's work to do there with Trey Lance. I think the 49ers protect him well enough to make it serviceable, but I think they know when they play a good team in the playoffs, they're not going to be able to win games with Trey Lance. It's just with Jimmy G, I'm not sure if they feel they can win a playoff game with Jimmy G either. So
at least Jimmy G, I've seen play in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, he had a 10-point lead at one point in a Super Bowl.
Well, to be fair, they only had to throw the ball 8 times against the Minnesota Vikings. So, there's that. So, I mean, it just depends on how San Francisco wants to play this, I think, at the end of the day. The Texans just look sad right now. They're limping to the end. They gave it their all. They fought. And I think some guys are just checking out. They're ready for the season to be over with. So it wasn't much of a dogfight.
You know what, though? You and I said if Deshaun doesn't play, we didn't know how many times the Texans were even going to win a game. So the fact that they're 4-12, I would be like, oh, shit. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Like that it could be worse. I don't know what to make of the Texans' future because I don't know what to expect with the Deshaun Watson situation. But overall, the Niners, they had to win this game and they did. So it doesn't make me feel totally confident in them, but they have a real shot at the playoffs in Week 18. So, all right, moving on now to a game that we expected to be one of the games of the day, and it was a good one, but I do think some bad officiating and poor play by the Cowboys in the first half kind of spoiled it. But one of these games we were head to head on, Matt Bushnell, and I want to just give myself credit for getting this one right because I did think the Cardinals were going to win. And they did 25-22 over the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys, they can only get up to the 2 seed now with this loss. And the Cardinals, they already had a playoffs clinched, but this was a big win, I think, for their confidence. Kyler looked great in this game, and Dak did not. So I think to the tale of two quarterbacks in this game overall. And the big loss for Dallas is that Michael Gallup tore his ACL, and he is out for the rest of the season. I think that's a huge blow because I think he's a very important piece to their offense. So both 11-5 now. Cowboys won the NFC, so they're not going to be in a wild card situation. But regardless, both of these teams are both playoff teams. This is a really good competitive football game.
Yeah. To me, I liked watching the game. There's things that I didn't like about the officiating. And it just comes back to, like, why do we have to do this every week in the NFL? Like, the game shouldn't be talked about how bad the officiating was. It gets old after a while. And it's not like, we talk about baseball with robots versus human umpires and strike zones. I mean, so strike zones are tough to call regardless. I give a little leeway to that. So some of these calls are just atrocious. They're just so bad. You're like, well, why? And at the end of the day, I just go back to full-time officiating. And it really marred this game. And like Jacob said in the comments, that Kyler doesn't lose in the new Cowboy Stadium, which is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So, it was a big win for the Cardinals, confidence-wise, to get that confidence back and get the ball rolling and start playing better for the postseason. Hopefully they get D-Hop back for round 1. But to me, this hurts the Cowboys more than anything, because Gallup being out takes a huge part of that passing offense away, and it's a shame. So...
Yeah, they're not going to run the ball, especially either. They had 17 carries for 45 yards. Like, that's not going to get the job done. And then Dak had 3 touchdowns and no picks, but he also had 3 fumbles and was lucky to only lose one of them. Like, they got some lucky bounces of that there. So overall, the Cowboys are very talented, and that's why they are where they are. But they have shown time and time again that they can have duds, throughout the season. So they've benefited from being in a division that has 2 bad teams in Washington and the Giants, I think. So that helps. But overall, the Cowboys, I don't expect to make it past round 2. And if they did make it past that, I don't expect them to be in the Super Bowl. So, all right. Well, the Cardinals, good for them. Doesn't change much for their playoff seeding, I don't think. But overall, they're in. So good for them. Now, the Saints and the Panthers. The only thing that matters about this game is that the Saints are still alive. They do need, I believe, the Niners to lose and a win to get in, which is possible, I think, because I think the Niners are playing the Rams. So that's totally possible, depending on the Rams' motivation coming in. But the Saints win this one over the Panthers 18-10, and looks like the Rule Darnold era looks to be a failure, and one that it might not make it past one season.
Yeah, I think it's over with. The Saints played good defense this game. They covered the points. Thank God. Thank God for the 8. That half point, baby.
That half point.
So good for the Saints for doing that. So I don't believe in the Saints outside of their defense. Their quarterback play is so terrible. It's really hard to watch. And then you take a look at the Panthers, and there's nothing. Chuba Hubbard had a nice touchdown, but other than that, I'm out on the Panthers. I think they should fire Matt Rule 1,000%. So, not much to add. It was a very underwhelming game overall.
Yeah, 18-10, not a ton happening. Taysom Hill came back. Good for the Saints, whatever. But, 8-8 on the season now for them. Kind of think they need to explore quarterback in the offseason, but they seem to be in love with that guy. So still have a chance. Somehow the Saints have a chance to make the playoffs. Kind of hard to believe. All right, last game of the day. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it, Matt Bushnell, but the Seahawks, if this was the last home game for Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll as a duo, they wanted to go out with a bang. They get the Detroit Lions. They won 51-29. Wilson hits DK Metcalf for 3 touchdowns to take care of business. 6-10 on the year. So sorry for Jets fans, your pick a little bit worse than the Lions. Our fighting covering Lions let us down in this one, Matt Bush. Yeah. They could not get the job done. Tim Boyle, not very good.
No, not good at all. Not good at all. Russell Wilson with 4 touchdown passes, mightily impressive. Rashard Penny, the star of the game. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. He had 25 carries for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then, of course, DK Metcalf had 3 touchdown receptions, and not really to the level of difficulty that you would come to expect from DK Metcalf, but it is what it is. But yeah, like Leon says in the comments, Tim Boyle sucks. Garbage. So yeah, that's about it. Just a really disappointing, late game when the Lions couldn't cover.
I know I was hoping for some DeAndre Swift love, never got that either. Unfortunately, all of these contributing factors to my non-fantasy championship, rather a second place finish. So thanks for nothing, Lions. The hell. All right. That's all the games, Matt Bushnell. I'm glad we left a couple minutes here because I did want to mention, and it seems like every week now we have something and someone that has left us. Unfortunately, we're not talking about Betty White. Obviously, Betty White, RIP to a legend, but a football legend left us on New Year's Day. It is head coach / player Dan Reeves, and at 77 years old, he died. I believe. I remember what exactly he died of, but nonetheless, he coached the Broncos, Falcons, my Giants. He was the player coach for the Cowboys back in the day. A little bit before my time, I think at the very beginning of my Giants fandom, he was the coach there in '96 before Fossil took over. So I do vaguely remember that, and I remember the Vic days with the Falcons. But a guy who has over 200 wins. I believe he's one of a handful, maybe 10 coaches who have 200 career victories at coach. So a real football legend here at coach. And, I wasn't a bad player either back in the day, left us here at the start of 2022.
Yeah, and a lot of things will get forgotten, but he was the original, he was tied with Marty Schottenheimer in a lot of ways about not being able to win the big one. I think he took the Broncos to 3 Super Bowls, lost all 3. Mm-hmm. Playing the 49ers doesn't help. That 49er juggernaut team was always difficult for them to overcome. So, Dan Reeves was a really good coach, actually a great coach. And I'm not sure if he's in the Hall of Fame as a coach, but he should be. I think the resume speaks for itself. So God bless Dan Reeves and his family, a real legend, and sad that we had to lose another football legend.
Absolutely. So, we always like to pay our respects to the football heroes of ours of the past that have left us. So Dan Reeves, New Year's Day, taken from us at the, I would say young age of 77, as we've seen some others a little bit older pass on. So rest in peace, Dan Reeves. Thank you for your contributions to the football world. All right, Matt Bushnell, I understand you're up against it time-wise. You want to do a quick little plug for the other shows under the under the Life Group umbrella?
Forgot I was muted there for a second.
I was going to say, did I lose him?
No, you didn't lose me yet. Dong City with Vince Mercandetti and Henry Maldonado Jr. I'm not sure if they're going Wednesdays, but when they do, watch out for those guys, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays. No movement on the labor talks for baseball, so not a whole lot to talk about in that arena. It's just kind of slow. I don't know if the Work Shoot Wrestling podcast is back with Jason Brooks and Corey Richmond. I know Jason had twins, so congratulations to Jason on that. I know we said that previously. Absolutely. And his Green Bay Packers got him the number 1 seed as a gift, so must be nice. and then we also have the Total Bases podcast with Felipe Malicio and Austin Sparrow on Sundays, previewing fantasy baseball, going over a bunch of numbers, seeing who's good, who's bad, who could win, who cannot. So catch those guys on Sunday mornings. And then actually this past Monday, we had Leon Tompkins and Jacob Anthony Moses go for Basketball Life, the Step Back podcast with Freddie Forte. Really entertaining show. Loved it. I still have to finish it. Phone calls get in the way of that, but really good stuff, gentlemen. Thank you for going, and thank you for giving my Bulls. Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but those
no DeRozan love though. No DeRozan love though.
No DeRozan love. No DeRozan love whatsoever. But you know what? That's fine. And I forgot to mention Thursday we'll be back at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock a.m. for Pacific Standard Time. So that's all of them.
You deserve a raise for remembering all those time zones, because every time I just give up. I just say 2 Eastern and then leave it at that. So.
As long as the check's in the mail.
Check cleared. That's all I meant. Check cleared. Henry, you can make that out to Matt Bushnell. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, thank you all for participating in Facebook. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you're there, if you're listening to us on the audio only platforms, we greatly appreciate that as well. So, Matt, great show to start 2022. I'm looking forward to many more with you, and we're going to start it off on Thursday. So we'll see you guys then. Stay safe, stay healthy.